Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the online series 11 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. Today we're trying out a really cool team featuring Gigantamax Centiskorch and Galarian Articuno. This was submitted to me by a player called Ice Bullet, who I've linked down in the description below, so huge thank you to them for submitting the team. And they built this team with a friend of theirs, Lele. So I've linked both of the original team creators' Twitters down in the description below, as well as a rental and a paste for the team, courtesy of them. So yeah, I mean, I think as soon as I saw Gigantamax Centiskorch and Galarian Articuno, I was definitely intrigued. And I think that this team supports them really, really well. It's a great example of how you can use unorthodox Pokemon to counter the metagame super, super well. So starting with Gigantamax Centiskorch, you might be wondering, okay, why is it valuable in this format? And there are a couple of reasons. One, Centiskorch has a very favorable matchup into the most common restricted Pokemon in Zacian, right? You can just one-shot them potentially with your GMAX attack, and even if you don't KO them, they can't deal much damage to you. So having a very favorable matchup against the most common Pokemon in the format, already really valuable. And you also have a favorable matchup into a lot of the most common non-restricteds, like Rillaboom, for example. So Centiskorch in itself can actually, be very powerful against things that you'll often run into. And this set is really cool. You've got Coil with leftovers as well as dual screen support from Grimmsnarl. So the idea is that you make Centiskorch really bulky. You don't even necessarily have to max it, right? You can max Gastrodon or Landorus to give it special defense boosts via Max Quick from those Pokemon. But Centiskorch is also a really strong max option, and it's actually really good after max is over as well, because Flare Blitz is just an incredibly powerful attack, and Leech Life is really valuable in healing yourself up after you take all this damage. So yeah, I think it's a really intriguing Pokemon I hadn't even thought about before in this format, and its GMAX effect is also really nice, giving you the effect of Fire Spin, so trapping Pokemon in while also chipping away. It's really valuable in getting rid of Focus Sashes, for example, which is a very common item. The other cool thing about trapping Pokemon in is that you've got Yawn, Gastrodon on this team, and so with Centiskorch, if you're able to get that GMAX Inferno off and they can't switch out, well then Gastrodon can just Yawn and they'll be put to sleep in the subsequent turn. Even a single Yawn going off with this team is super, super big, because yeah, it just completely invalidates one slot for one turn, and this team, even though is really bulky, can also just blow the game wide open with one big turn from Centiskorch or Zacian, for example. So that's what the Centiskorch here is designed to do. You've also got the Chestoberry competitive Galarian Articuno. This is designed very specifically for the weather matchup, but can also be pretty good outside of weather. It's especially good into sun and even rain. That's why you're running Hurricane as well, for a stronger, max airstream, and also just for a stronger flying type attack if Kyogre comes out, for example. Calm Mind is really valuable, especially when you've supported it with Grimmsnarl with screen supports. It's pretty difficult to KO. And you've got Chestoberry as well as Lumberry on the Landorus-T to really help you out against, the Pokemon that want you to put you to sleep, like Amoonguss or Venusaur. So, I think once again, team counters the meta really well. Sun's all over the place, and the Landorus, Centiskorch, Articuno trio can actually be super, super good. You're not necessarily going to bring all three against, Sun teams, but all of them give you very nice answers into the common Torkoal, Venusaur, Charizard, Groudon stuff that you'll often see. And so, yeah, I think the Articuno set also just kind of unexpected. Ally Switch can always be handy to get you out of a pinch. One thing that's actually really cool about Ally Switch as well with this team is, let's say you're up against an Incineroar that wants to go for Parting Shot. If you Ally Switch and then you bait them into Parting Shotting into Zacian or Landorus, and then Articuno eats the Parting Shot, you just get so many boosts with competitive immediately, right? And so that's one other thing you can think about when you're using it. Around the team, you've got pretty classic Lumberry Landorus-T with Swords Dance, Zacian, Grimmsnarl. Now, note that the Grimmsnarl has Foul Play here rather than Spirit Break. That's really helpful against Calyrex Shadow Rider. As you'll note, we don't have great, Ghost Resists here, so that can give us good damage there. And then Gastrodon, as I mentioned. And one thing to note is that Landorus and Zacian are bulkier spreads, so once again, check out the paste in the description below. And that bulk goes a long way because you have your Grimmsnarl to set up screens as well. So while you might not necessarily be attacking first, well, you'll do a ton of damage, and then the Thunder Wave support on Grimmsnarl can allow Pokemon like Zacian and Landorus to outspeed. And Gastrodon here can be a decent max option as well, depending on the matchup. So overall, I think, yeah, Centiskorch and Articuno are really, really pivotal members to this team, so I'm excited to see, how well they can function in the format. And yeah, so thanks so much once again to the original team creators for the team. Check them out, linked in the description below. Try out the team if you want yourselves. And yeah, as always, if you enjoy, please show support by leaving a like in the video. I'd really appreciate it. And let's get started. All right. Our first game of the day, and we are up against the Calyrex Shadow Rider Hyper Offense team that we featured at the very beginning of the season. Okay, so Grimmsnarl for early screens, definitely going to be really valuable here. Zacian's pretty strong. The idea of trapping in with Centiskorch, I think, is pretty intriguing as well, but I obviously have to worry about Thundurus. Thundurus is probably our biggest threat, so I think one interesting solution to stopping Thundurus in this game is actually Yawn with Gastrodon, so I can go like Grimmsnarl plus Gastrodon early. Bring Zacian. Articuno's really meant for weather teams here. Can I take advantage of it? I feel like I'm just too slow to really deal enough with it. And it doesn't really deal enough damage either. I could bring it for Calm Mind, but it's also just so weak into Calyrex Shadow Rider. Yeah, so I'm going to give Centiskorch an attempt here, I think. Because I feel like there are a bunch of different approaches we can take in this game. With the lead, obviously, it's going to be a Gastrodon or a Centiskorch lead, so trying to figure out which one of those two I want, or Dynamax, I meant to say. Trying to figure out which one of those two I want to Dynamax, but Gastrodon is helpful because if they go with like Whimsicott plus Thundurus, for example, I could potentially just go for Yawn. It's going to be Lele and Calyrex. Okay, I don't mind that too much. It's a pretty free turn 1 light screen. The question is, maybe I just want to max the Gastrodon immediately, because we can just get a bunch of Max Quakes off with this. And it is modest, so it's not like terrible damage output. I think Light Screen is definitely fine. I just would really like to max Centiskorch if possible. Like, I think I'm also down to just protect turn 1 and then Light Screen here. We've got Foul Play, which also can hit Calyrex Shadow Rider should it come to that, but I definitely want to set up a Light Screen on turn 1 of this game. Ideally, they knock out Grimmsnarl and just give me a free switch into Zacian. I think that would be pretty good. Because, well, actually, I could go into Centiskorch as well, trap them in. That's not a terrible idea. Okay, they go for Expanding Force. That's fine. Perfect. And then a Moonblast. That's fine. I'd actually prefer to feint here, but I think we might survive because of Light Screen. Yeah, we do. Okay. Given that we survived that... I almost want to just, like, bring in Centiskorch immediately, but I think one other thing we can do here... I can probably just sacrifice Grimmsnarl here, I think. I don't mind going for a Yawn onto the Calyrex slot. And then also getting a Reflect up right now. This gives me screens for, you know, the next couple of turns. I'll be able to bring in Centiskorch for free, and then this is where things get really interesting in my opinion. Because I can just max Centiskorch and then potentially just recover off all the damage I'm taking right now with the Gastrodon. And with Light Screen, yeah, we're not really taking that much, which is pretty solid. Okay. Moonblast and a Gastrodon there would have been a pretty strong play, I think, actually. But the cool thing is, yeah, now I get Centiskorch in for free, which is what I was looking for. I also could bring in Calyrex. I think that's... Or, sorry, Zacian. That's another consideration. Might be better to bring out Zacian right now, because I can just Behemoth Blade the Tapu Lele. I guess part of the question is what... They should have Entei in the back, actually, right? So I'd actually rather bring out Zacian first, because I don't want to max Centiskorch until I see what their final back Pokemon are. And Zacian is a relatively free switch-in for us right now. Okay. So, what can Calyrex really switch into? I think I can always go for a Yawn onto that slot for relatively free. Yawn onto the Calyrex and sub is what I'm thinking of here, because it covers for a switch-out option. If I were my opponent, I mean, you could also stay in and double up on Gastrodon. An Entei or Thundurus switch in here certainly makes some sense. So I think I'm down to Yawn the Calyrex here and get a free sub up if possible. I guess they could just stay in with Calyrex as well, but I'm fine with that. But yeah, it's going to switch out. Okay. And there's Entei coming in. Cool. So now that we've gotten Yawn off onto Entei, it's going to be a lot more difficult for them to actually, you know, go for anything with it next turn. In fact, you'd probably be incentivized to switch it back out. But the thing is, you don't really have a safe switch into Behemoth Blade. Okay. So, we get Yawn successfully off here. I feel like I should max Centiskorch, but the problem is this Entei still. I also probably want to max Gastrodon to deal with Entei. Like, that's the main problem right now, I think. I'm down to bring in Centiskorch. I would think Entei switches back out right now. I don't want to give them a free switch in, so I'm down to just Behemoth Blade the Entei, predicting it to switch out. You can go back into Calyrex. I think that makes a lot of sense. And the thing is, now with Centiskorch out, I can potentially Coil. My problem, I guess, is I just don't have great damage output into Entei by not bringing Landorus. And so I think I needed to respect that more offensively in this matchup. Oh, interesting. They're staying in with Entei. Okay. I'm kind of surprised to see that. They're not going to max either. Was it Lum on the Entei? I actually don't remember. I think it may have been. Either way, though, by not maxing there, I just did over 50% to you immediately, which is obviously amazing for us. Okay, they're just going to Flare Blitz into the sub. Perfect. I mean, the thing is, Entei is not scary anymore because of this last turn. And that's a really big deal because it means we've put Centiskorch in a position to thrive. I think, yeah, it was Life Orb. That's what I thought. Okay, I'll gladly take that. I mean, now your Entei falls asleep, meaning that this completely opens the path for Centiskorch in this game, which is really, really neat. Now, their last Pokemon, of course, could be that Thundurus, but that's not really that scary. And now that Entei's asleep, I can actually ignore that slot. We still have a couple turns of screens left. I can go for Coil here. Yeah, I'm not opposed to that. Coil here, and then Behemoth Blade into Tapu Lele feels like a really strong play, right? It's like a free Behemoth Blade. You have no switching into that. So I'll just get a knockout. I'll get a Coil now, and Centiskorch now can do really well in this endgame, regardless of what Pokemon you end up maxing, right? And the other thing is, we've stalled out terrain perfectly, so it's like you're not even dealing that much damage with your Calyrex Shadow Rider. So, yeah, I guess my opponent just wanted to get damage off, and that's where the sub previously was really helpful, but I think, you know, in that position, just falling asleep with Entei puts you in a really, really tough spot, because now it's like that slot is rendered useless, right? So now we've got a Centiskorch boosted up a decent amount. That defense boost, by the way, really going to be important if their final Pokemon is Thundurus, right? And so we know Calyrex-S in the back. That's honestly not very scary with it being Focus Sash, no more Psychic Terrain, and us having Light Screen up. And their last one is going to be Thundurus. Okay, that makes the most sense to me. Thundurus is fine. I'm willing to just max now, go for the GMAX Centiskorch onto the Thundurus, and I'm wondering here if you end up, like, you should Airstream, right? Calyrex is going to be your final Pokemon. We know it's AV Thundurus. I do want to knock out Entei, so the question here is whether or not they protect the Entei this turn. But I think I'm willing to just Behemoth Blade into Entei. If they protect, they have to wake up too, right? So it's like you have to, one, choose to go for protect this turn, then two, also hope that you only get a one-turn sleep. And so, yeah, the odds are in our favor here, right? Even if they choose to go protect, they still have to wake up, and if they don't, then we'll just outspeed. We'll knock out the Entei. A Max Airstream into Centiskorch will hurt, but we have a defense boost, and we have Reflect up. And then we'll get a +1 GMAX Centiskorch off, which is pretty valuable. So, yeah. I think this one's interesting because Centiskorch did have a bunch of like really notable weaknesses in Entei and Thundurus, but we actually put it in a position where I actually feel comfortable maxing it, which is pretty neat. So, yeah, I wasn't sure if I'd be able to get the GMAX Centiskorch out in our very first game with it, but here we are. Let's see how much damage we'll take from them. This isn't a Life Orb Thundurus either, so Max Airstream obviously does considerably less damage. And perfect, they don't even try protecting with Entei, so that's beautiful. What I didn't want to do was ignore it, have the Entei wake up, and then have them just like pick up a double KO, potentially. So getting that out of the way is a huge deal. That was my main threat in this game, in my opinion. That's why I wanted to catch it with the Yawn. So they're going to Max Airstream, that's okay. Oh, interesting, they actually target Zacian. Okay, so maybe reading into a Centiskorch Protect, but like I said, I have this defense boost, and I have a Reflect up right now, so I don't have that much incentive to protect it right now. Landorus gets a speed boost, but now we get the GMAX Centiskorch off, and oh my goodness. That in itself did 70%. Wow, okay. That's amazing. And now we obviously have to chip damage. That's also really helpful against the Calyrex, because obviously we know Calyrex has the Focus Sash here, so we can just one-shot that. And at this point, I think it's going to be really hard for Thundurus to deal enough damage to actually close out this game, because we'll survive Astro Barrage with both Pokemon right now. We should survive Max Airstream and Astro Barrage with both. Centiskorch should always win the 1v1 against the Calyrex here. Although Centiskorch here will always just KO you, right? Thanks to Sash being broken by Fire Spin. So I don't mind just going for the target onto that, just because it can snowball a little bit quicker, and then just Behemoth Blade into the Thundurus. We have Ice Beam on Gastrodon, so we have a way to hit Thundurus and knock it out. And they're actually going to go for Darkness. Okay. I mean, you get a special defense drop that way, but like Centiskorch is just untouched right now in terms of damage. Like, yeah, maybe now Astro Barrage does a little bit more. I think this is smart because at least you try to pick up the knockout on Zacian, but the Zacian just has way too much bulk on this team. It's, you know, very bulky Zacian with max HP and not as much speed investment or attack investment. So that will essentially seal up the game for us. So yeah, this one was interesting because we had to put Centiskorch in a very specific position for it to thrive, and we didn't really get to like trap my opponent in. A Centiskorch lead with Grimmsnarl I actually think could have been really strong for us, but in the end, the Yawn onto Entei and then them not switching out Entei put us in a really, really good position. So yep, we essentially one-shot the Calyrex here after Fire Spin. So yeah, you know, one thing that's interesting here is I didn't feel as confident about like getting an early trap in with Centiskorch because I felt like there was a lot of scary damage output from my opponent's team with Dynamax Entei or Dynamax Thundurus. So I always wanted to lead Grimmsnarl, and I felt like Gastrodon was good because I was really afraid of the Thundurus, and so my plan was to try to put it to sleep with the Yawn early on. They didn't end up leading Thundurus, but in the end, yeah, they didn't deal that much damage to us. The screens obviously provided a lot of value, and Centiskorch didn't even eat up a max airstream. I was curious how much damage it would do, but yeah, with Coil and with Reflect and Thundurus not having Life Orb, I wasn't too worried about its damage output there. So yeah, let's just keep it going. Alright, next one here, and we've got Yveltal. Landorus, Venusaur, Torkoal, Grimm, Incin. I think this might just be Joe's Yveltal team, which we featured a couple of episodes back. Well, Articuno's really interesting in this matchup, because if you Snarl us, then Competitive gets activated. I can also Calm Mind here, and it's also a decent max option. Especially because they have Landorus and Incineroar. So, I'm definitely going to feature Articuno in this one, I think. I'm trying to figure out who else. I mean, Grimmsnarl, I think, is always valuable for light screen here. What would I lead if I were in their position? Maybe Grimmsnarl plus, like, Venusaur? I'm honestly really intrigued by Grimm Articuno here. Zacian in the back, and then Landorus doesn't feel like a terrible last option here. It's obviously really good into Sun Comps in general, and even if I don't max it, it's still decent. I think Gastrodon's just really weak because of Venusaur in itself. Maybe don't bring Venusaur. Centiskorch isn't terrible here, but they have Landorus and Yveltal. This one's interesting. I feel like I'm not 100% confident on team preview, but we have so many good options here, and I think my opponent is probably feeling the pressure because, one, obviously, Yveltal itself doesn't have a great matchup into Zacian, but you might actually feel compelled to bring Yveltal here because otherwise the Articuno can put in a ton of work. So, yeah. I'm hoping we can get set up with Articuno and actually potentially max it here. It's a big question of whether or not they lead with the Yveltal or not. And they are going to. Okay. Grimm and Yveltal. Yep, that makes sense. What do I want to do with this? It's pretty free to just switch Articuno out into Zacian. Could also go into Landorus. We don't have Spirit Break. Could Light Screen, Calm Mind, but I think I should conserve Articuno for the end game in my opinion, so I am down for a Light Screen, I'm down to switch Articuno out, and I'm down to just go into Zacian right now. Because now I can flex maxing Articuno or Landorus in the end game. And, like, both of my opponent's Pokemon out on the field right now are super duper weak to my Zacian, right? Maxing Yveltal here would be a really good sight to see, but they don't. Yeah, smart of them not to. So we'll both get both screens up likely in this game, but I feel like it favors us more than it favors my opponent. Okay, interesting. They actually just foul play. Actually does a ton of damage thanks to the Zacian switch in, so nice play. I can reflect now. I mean, do you stay in with Yveltal here? That'd be a really bold move, I think. I could see them staying with Yveltal and then switching Grimm out into, like, Incin. That wouldn't even be that bad for us. Okay, I don't mind going for Behemoth Blade onto Yveltal here. If you switch out, that means Grimmsnarl's, like, you know, either staying in or double switching. Yeah, okay, they're going to switch Incin for that slot. That's fine. What could have been really cool there is if I, like, actually predicted that and brought in Articuno immediately, but yeah, that's fine. Okay, they're actually just going to opt for Thunder Wave here, and unfortunately for them, they miss, which is actually a very big deal here, because now I can pivot my Zacian back out into Landorus-T. At this point, we also know 3 of my opponent's 4 Pokemon, and Grimm and Incin aren't exactly huge offensive threats, right? So that knowledge, you know, certainly benefits us. That also feels like a crit, but I'm not sure. No, it wasn't. Wow. Zacian's just strong. The other fun thing here is if we can catch them on a parting shot, it can activate competitive. So I almost want to double switch here. I mean, would you Thunder Wave and parting shot Zacian? I guess that's one question. I could also just stay in here, honestly, and attack. Just go for a Behemoth Blade and let my Zacian get paralyzed, but I feel like it's not worth to let it get paralyzed this early on. So the idea of a double switch is pretty intriguing to me here. It would just be so safe if I could catch them as they parting shot me. I feel like it's not worth letting Articuno get paralyzed, though. But if I get paralyzed and they parting shot us, then it actually is worth it. So I kind of wish I tried to switch Grim out last turn, but I don't mind getting both screens up in this game. I feel like that's really important. We get Landorus in safely. A single Swords Dance here would be huge. And this also means, by the way, that their final Pokemon, like, you can't have Venusaur and Torkoal, right? So it's not as scary. Okay, cool. They don't go for Thunder Wave. They reflect. If this is parting shot into the Articuno slot, this is an absolutely amazing turn, but it is just Flare Blitz. Okay, that's fine. So -1 Flare Blitz with Reflect being up. Yeah, it really doesn't do too much damage. Okay. The cool thing is I got both of my Pokemon in for relative low cost, right? Now I wonder if you want to consider switching out the Incineroar, but this is a super free opportunity for me to Swords Dance. I could see them clicking Thunder Wave again, so I could always switch back out into Grim, but they have 3 Dark types, so I have so little value from Grim in this game, which is kind of sad. Honestly, down for Swords Dance into Calm Mind here, I think. Okay, they just go for Thunder Wave. Didn't switch Instant out, so I could have just gone for an Earthquake there, but I feel like Swords Dance is pretty valuable. Ally Switch would have been really interesting, because then if you're going for Parting Shot onto the Articuno, you'd actually activate my competitive. But okay, it's actually going to be Throat Chop. Cool. That makes sense. Although I think now you're actually in a really weird spot, because like I just got so many free boosts with all of my Pokemon, right? Grimmsnarl's not really that scary. You would think Instant switches out in this position, right? But like, who do you even go out into? Yveltal, Landorus? Both of those make some sense. I want to Rock Slide because I really want to cover for the Yveltal switch in. Okay. Honestly, I'm down to Ancient Power and Rock Slide here. Because if they switch in Yveltal and we just knock out Yveltal on the switch in or deal enough damage where another max move from Landorus KOs, that's totally worth it. I was actually expecting Instant to switch out last turn, so I was kind of surprised to not see that happen immediately. Let's see. Okay, they're going to switch. Nice. Max Rockfall there could have been pretty cool as well. And they're actually going to bring in the Landorus. Okay. So that is going to activate my competitive, but the downside is... You know, Articuno is already pretty weak, and it's paralyzed, so it's not really a great max option in this game. Articuno could have been the MVP, but I needed to, like, KO Grimmsnarl first. Okay, Rock Slide doesn't miss, so that's pretty good. Great damage there on the Landorus. It's a crit. They're just going to Spirit Break us. That's not going to KO. Okay, I was going to say, you would activate competitive if you targeted Articuno there, so could have been scary for them. Okay, beautiful. Ancient Power connects. We're going to hit... We're not going to KO, but that's okay. I'm only at +1 now. Getting another Swords Dance would be pretty sweet. They can just go for Rock Slide. I don't remember if Joe's Landorus was max speed. I feel like it was. So then you could just Rock Slide into Spirit Break, which doesn't feel amazing. Is there a point in conserving? I could max Articuno. That seems kind of wild, though. Okay, I'm just going to max. I'm going to Airstream here. And Hurricane. Oh, they switch out. Okay. Well, it makes sense. I feel like Grimmsnarl is just not providing much in that position anyway, so yeah, I can respect that. I wanted to max Airstream here to ensure that Landorus outspeeds, because the key thing is, if you're my opponent, your two ways of dealing with my Zacian are, especially because they missed that Thunder Wave, unfortunately for them, so we can use that towards our advantage. I mean, even if they didn't, they would still need 2 foul plays to KO my Zacian, but Their turn 1 foul play was really good, right? Because it managed to get a lot of free damage on his Zacian, which otherwise shouldn't have happened. Yeah, Articuno hangs on with 2 HP, but I feel like, oh, but because they're Life Orb, yeah, now my Max Airstream gets redirected, so I get a pretty powerful Max Airstream off into Yveltal. It's not going to KO, but still a ton of damage because that's probably the Pokemon you want to max. And at this point, if we miraculously hit Hurricane through Confusion, Paralysis, and Accuracy, the game's just over, I think. So let's see. No way, Articuno gets it off. Oh, wow. I mean, the odds of that are not in our favor, right? Like, I have to not flinch, I have to attack through Paralysis, and I have to attack through the Accuracy. So that is obviously a lucky turn. But I think we would have been in a really good spot, to be honest, even if that didn't connect. And the thing is, now my opponent just has no damage anymore, right? With the Pokemon that they brought, you have to max Landorus or maybe Yveltal if you're able to chip away at all my Pokemon enough, but, you know, they weren't able to do that. And Grimmsnarl and Incineroar are just, like, relatively passive Pokemon overall, right? So, yeah. Articuno was really clutch here. I did not expect it to get that off, but, yeah. Okay, either way, you could knock, I mean, theoretically, I guess, Dynamax Grimmsnarl. They still have a couple turns of Light Screen and a couple turns of Reflect left. We're at neutral now. Ooh, I'm actually... Do I want to Airstream here? I mean, Sacred Sword from Zacian should finish off Incin in the long run. I don't know if Max Quake gets the knockout through Reflect. It's fine to Max Quake here, I think. And then just Ancient Power as well. Like, Grimmsnarl's never, you know, dealing damage to us. We know its moveset, Thunder Wave, Spirit Break, Dual Screens. And so, yeah, like, you're just never actually going to deal any significant damage with it. So you're basically forced to max the Incineroar. I was thinking about trying to get the knockout on the Grimm there, but I don't think I actually do. I'd rather just Max Quake it. The Ensign's not coming close, I think, to picking up a knockout onto Landorus. Now with the speed boost on Articuno, I also might outspeed the Grimmsnarl. I was thinking of going for a Max Airstream to allow Articuno to outspeed both Pokemon, but the thing is, I don't really want to deal with the chance of a Paralysis. Like, we've already gotten very lucky with Articuno. I'll, you know, count my blessings, and yeah. Like, we don't really need anything more out of it, but we're actually already faster here, and we attack through Paralysis. So, you know, this is the upside of having Max Airstream. Like, even though we're paralyzed, you know, with the nerf to Paralysis in the more recent gens, and it only bringing you to half speed rather than a quarter speed, like, you can often actually still pick up some speed from Max Airstream and, yeah, outspeed some of these really slow Pokemon. So I got so much more mileage out of the Articuno than I expected in this game. And the main thing is that my opponent just switched in on a lot of free damage, right? Like, they brought in Landorus when I went for the Rock Slide. That's exactly why I went for Rock Slide there, by the way, because if I go for EQ and Landorus comes in for free, that Pokemon can Dynamax and just sweep me. And so I needed to basically force it to not be able to do that. But now we can just Quake and then Behemoth Blade. This is why it's really scary, right? Like, being able to get in your Dynamax Pokemon in safely without taking any damage, right? Like, even if your Dynamax Pokemon takes, like, 50%, it feels really, really bad, especially for something as bulky as, like, Yveltal on that team, for example. So, yeah, we definitely had some good RNG in this game. Like, they missed the Thunder Wave on Zacian. That can be tilting. Well, it wasn't relevant in the long run here, but obviously the mental factor of that's always a big deal. Yeah, Light Clay, AV... So I think both the teams we went up against today were teams that we featured previously on the channel, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, either way, this one, it was one in which, like, yeah, I mean, Articuno could have done even more if they went with, like, the Venusaur Torkoal combination, so they were smart not to. But had they gone for, like, it could have just been a complete sweep with Articuno. You get a Calm Mind off, you max with it, and then you just go from there. But it's still putting a ton of work in this one, so already glad to feature all the different Pokemon on this team once with the GMAX Centiskorch as well as the Articuno. So let's look for one more. All right, last one here, and it is Venusaur, Torkoal, Fini, Instinct, Cresselia, and Calyrex Ice Rider. Okay. Centiskorch is really intriguing to me here. Like, with the combination of Coil and Screens from Grimm, all of our Pokemon are decent here, which is always fun. Because, like, Articuno can be really good if they go lean towards Venu plus Torkoal, but I think I want to play towards Centiskorch in this one. Grimm and Centiskorch feels fine. We can, like, Screens and Coil up pretty quickly on. If they didn't have Calyrex Ice Rider, like, I would say we just 100% play towards Landorus, but they can obviously Trick Room, and that's pretty scary. Obviously, no one's Zacian. Man, we have so many options with this team, which is really cool. I think I like Gastrodon the most as the final one. Because of Yawn. I guess they have Fini, but... yeah, Fini's pretty good for them, isn't it? Gastrodon's still not bad, though. Like, what else would I bring? I feel like Articuno and Gastrodon are just... or Landorus are both too weak to Calyrex Ice Rider if I'm not maxing it. This is one in which our team, the team that we're using, definitely has the tools equipped to deal with my opponents. But I don't know if the 4 I'm bringing are going to be, like, the absolute best 4 of the 4 that they're bringing, right? It's like... in best of ones, you typically want to just bring a set of Pokemon that like gives you an okay matchup against whatever your opponent brings. This is one in which it's like if they don't bring Calyrex Ice Rider, for example, we expect that we can really play towards like Landorus or Articuno. But with Calyrex, I just like have to show it respect, right? Venusaur, okay, a very strong lead combo. I mean, there's so much we can do here. Light Screen into Coil is kind of cool. I'm like nervous about this being Focus Sash and then they just launch a Sleep Powder into Centiskorch. I think that's my primary fear on turn 1. But if you're doing that, you don't really get too much damage off, so honestly I'm down for just Light Screen. And then I'm not going to max because I want to respect the option of them going for a turn 1 Sleep Powder. Okay, they max. Wow. I really don't mind that, I think. Because turn 2, I can just Thunder Wave into GMAX Centiskorch. Yeah, I don't think Venusaur really does that much damage to Centiskorch. You might have Helping Hand. You could obviously go for Helping Hand GMAX Vine Lash here, but that's honestly okay. Not too worried about that. They Max Guard. Okay. I didn't think this is like the best possible turn 1. Like I couldn't have even thought. I wouldn't even thought about this turn as a possibility. Like I never thought we would just get a Light Screen for free and a Coil for free. And they just Trick Room. Okay. Why Max? I guess they just didn't feel comfortable switching out? That one's kind of baffling. I mean, I'm very happy with that outcome, obviously. But also just surprised. Okay. I could Coil again. There's a chance that they go for, like, Ally Switch here with the Cresselia. I could self Thunder Wave, but I don't think it's worth it. Reflect is always safe here. I'm fine going for Centinferno this first turn. If they Ally Switch, so be it. It's not the end of the world. The Max Guard is just really confusing to me, honestly. I guess, like, you Max Guard if you're scared of me, like, just KOing your Venusaur turn 1. Especially if you anticipate, like, special Centiskorch and, like, a fake Tears into a move. But the thing is that, like, it's not like Max Venu is even that good against Centiskorch to begin with, which is why I'm a little bit confused. I'll gladly take it, though. I feel like this highly, highly benefits us. Yeah, they do have Ally Switch. It would have been cool to get the Flutterby off, but I also don't mind just trapping them in immediately here. Like, it's fine. And it's like if they don't have Ally Switch and we just one-shot Venusaur, I feel like the game is just immediately over. And we're even faster than them under Trick Room. So, yeah, that turn 1 play was just really confusing, to be honest, but I'll take it. And just go for their Vine Lash of their own. That's fine. Pretty good damage there. That was... I feel like that's Life Orb. Yeah. Cool. That's fine. I mean, the only frustrating thing here is, like, if I had just gone for Max Flutterby and gotten the Cresselia, I guess, like, the game would almost feel like it's over already. But I think even regular Centiskorch is just so good into this matchup. I've already gotten both screens up, which is amazing. I don't really feel the need to take chip damage with either of the Pokemon in the back. So, I'm down to just Foul Play here. Foul Play might actually KO Cresselia, so I'm just double checking who's faster here. Nice. Okay, so Grimmsnarl would Foul Play first. Meaning I can safely Foul Play into Cresselia and Centinferno into it. I guess the downside is Flutterby not decreasing Venusaur's special attack, but I don't think I really need to right now anyway. I'm going to go for Helping Hand, so... I guess the only fear here is if Foul Play does not KO Cresselia, which might be the case. I saw like Cresselia's attack is super high, but... Oh. That's a little unfortunate. Okay. This is why Cresselia can be good, though, because of Ally Switch. And so, like, we missed out on an opportunity to one-shot. I really thought Foul Play would get the KO there, honestly, but it is what it is. Oh, they actually max Quake. Okay, that's a pretty strong play because you don't give me a free switch in. If you KO the Grimmsnarl there, I would just get a switch in into whatever I want, right? But I feel like Centiskorch still 1v4s their team. Even though these first two turns... Well, turn 1 played out really well. Turn 2 and turn 3, it feels like both turns I could have just essentially won the game immediately. Like, if Foul Play just does a little bit more damage there and we get a double KO, game's just over immediately. I did even mention the ally switch as an option there, but yeah. I don't mind taking the safer path right now. Although I guess there wasn't much downside of going for Flutterby earlier. Okay, they bring in Torkoal, but that's fine. It's even more awkward for the Venusaur right now. Okay, their max ends. Sentiferno should just one-shot that, honestly. We still have 2 turns of Trick Room left. I'm down to just get the guaranteed knockout here. Like, let's just Thunder Wave into Torkoal, make it harder for it to get an attack off, and then just Sentiferno onto Venusaur. We have Gastrodon in the back, so that's obviously going to be really good against Torkoal with Earth Power, especially since most Torkoals don't run Solar Beams these days. And they get paralyzed. I mean, that's the beauty of Thunder Wave, right? I'm sure they were going for Eruption or Heat Wave there, but with Light Screen up, Centiskorch is never fainting to that, so I wasn't really too worried about it, but I think this just makes the game... Actually, probably just end. No, not necessarily. It's not over yet. Okay. Gonna take some more Vine Lash. I mean, this was a game that, like, we should never lose, honestly, and the fact that it's not won yet is actually a little bit scary. The plan, by the way, there is, like, if they Eruption, right, obviously I can just Protect. Would I rather bring out Zacian or Gastrodon right now? Probably Gastrodon, actually, because their last one's probably going to be Calyrex, so I can just double Protect into Earth Power Flare Blitz. But the plan there is, okay, you get an Eruption off maybe, but then I just double Protect on the last turn of Trick Room. The turn 1 play was just really confusing to me. Like, I feel like they did not need to go for that. Especially because, like, I just didn't understand the idea of maxing Venusaur against the Centiskorch. Because it's not like Venusaur can one-shot Centiskorch anyway, right? Anyway, we still have both screens up. I'm fine double protecting here. There's not really that much downside to it, I think. Especially with the defense boost on Centiskorch, so might as well just stall out Trick Room here. Yeah, I don't really think there's much my opponent can do from this spot. And then next turn is just Flare Blitz into Earth Power, and I don't think they can really stop that unless Calyrex actually has speed investment and outspeeds us. Yeah, it was Eruption. So it's like we'd be in the same situation here, just lower HP with Centiskorch unless they like had a crit Eruption potentially. High horsepower, yep. Okay, we take Vine Lash damage. That's going to be it. And Centiskorch continues to heal up. That's the other nice thing about leftovers in a format like this when you're using a bulky Pokemon like Centiskorch. And the fact that Fire Spin actually, you know, activates against Torkoal is really nice. It's not like, you know, your GMAX attack from Charizard, for example. But Earth Power now, and just Flare Blitz. And even if your Calyrex were faster, you need a critical hit here with high horsepower. So, yeah. Cool. I think this one was interesting because it's like... If anything, actually, I guess by not knocking out Cresselia and Venusaur, we made it more difficult for them to bring in the Torkoal immediately under Trick Room. Whereas, like, if I pick up a KO immediately and you get Torkoal, things can be a little bit more scary. But I think Centiskorch, you know, just got fully set up on turn 1. A single Coil goes a long way, and then we also had the screens up so early on as well. So it's not like Calyrex or Torkoal in the back really scare me that much. I think the one thing is that they didn't bring Tapu Fini, or Incineroar. Fini would have been tough here because we can't deal, like, super good damage to it and could potentially Calm Mind on us. And so, like, my best to bet for Fini under Trick Room would be to like bring out Zacian, but they obviously have some good anti-Zacian stuff with the Torkoal. And so this is what I mean, right? In team preview, like I'm not sure my 4 would necessarily cover for all 6 of their Pokemon, but with the 4 that my opponent brought, Centiskorch alone just absolutely dominated. And I think that's the nice thing about using something like Centiskorch. Your opponents just don't really know what to expect from it, and this set works out super, super well for us. So yeah. That was a really, really fun set of games, and I'm really glad to feature what Pokemon like Centiskorch and Galarian Articuno can do in this format. So thanks so much as always for watching. If you enjoyed, please share your support by leaving a like. I'd really appreciate it. Don't forget to answer the question of the day and check out the original creator. Details for the team once again in the description below, and I'll see you all soon. we actually managed to string together a couple of wins, and that one brought us into the top 10 of the ranked season, which is pretty cool. So as always, it's been really fun featuring all these different teams in this format, and obviously we only have a couple of weeks left of Series 11. So partially inspired by the question of the day, I want to know what Series 12 content you would find helpful. But yeah, looking forward to playing a couple more games with this team, and then also featuring a couple of more things in the upcoming week. So thanks so much as always for watching, and I'll see you all soon. All right, peace.